in a moment. I thank the Prime Minister and the front bench spokespersons and the 111 honourable and right honourable members who questioned the Prime Minister over the last 3 and a bit hours. If the points of order, consistent with the earlier approach, arise specifically from and relate to these matters with which we have just been dealing, I'll take the point of order. I think it would be a courtesy to stay for the point of order. It would be a courtesy to stay for the point of order. The point of order relates to the matters with which we've just been dealing. Go and sit down. Well, I think I asked the Prime Minister if he'd be willing to stay, but he doesn't wish to do so. So be it. But the honourable gentleman's point of order will be heard. Point of order, Mr. John McDonnell.
Mr. Speaker, I regret the Prime Minister has left the chamber. The penultimate question to the Prime Minister was from my honourable friend of Edinburgh South, I believe, which was, in the fulfilment of all the conditions with regard to legislation that this House has passed, would he then abide by that legislation? Now, I might have heard wrong, but I believe the answer was a single word: no. That means that we have passed legislation. My honourable friend said if all the conditions of that legislation were fulfilled, would he then ensure that the action from an enacted piece of legislation would be taken? We are now moving into new territory where a Prime Minister already found guilty of an unlawful act is now refusing to abide by the law as passed by this House. We are moving into an extremely dangerous position with regard to accountability of a Prime Minister, this House and our democracy itself. I would ask you, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has left this House, even though it is quite clear you indicated to him that the point of order related to his behaviour. I would ask you, Mr. Speaker, to express the view that we expect the Prime Minister to be back in this House to ask that question again.
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for his point of order. I didn't say to the Prime Minister that the point of order related to his conduct or behaviour. I didn't say that. I didn't know what the point of order was going to be. I said to the Prime Minister that the point of order related to the matters with which we had just been dealing. In other words, in keeping with the approach that I adopted in respect of points of order following earlier statements, points of order that came from members, honourable or right honourable members on both sides of the House, I was happy to take them after the statements to which they related. And I suggested that the Prime Minister might wish to stay. He indicated initially that he was minded to do so, but he then decided that he wished to leave the chamber. He has been here since 6:30. He was here for 3 hours and 11 minutes, and he has chosen to leave. What I would like to say to the honourable gentleman, to the Shadow Chancellor, and to other colleagues is that I have been in the chair since 11:30 and will remain for the remainder of the proceedings, and therefore I've inevitably heard everything that has been said on this and other matters. And I think the fairest thing I can say is that I have heard the Prime Minister say explicitly that we will always obey the law, we will abide by the law, we will adhere to the law. He has said that. Equally, I did hear the answer that he gave earlier, and I think his words related to the submission of a request for an extension, and he indicated that he would not be minded to do so. I heard the full question, and I heard the full answer, and I think the right and proper thing at this point to say is colleagues, honourable and right honourable members, should study the record and form their own assessment of it. I have, of course, myself said, as anybody would expect, any citizen to say, any parliamentarian to say, any speaker to say, that adherence to the law must, of course, be non-negotiable. I don't think that I need to add to that tonight. Let's reflect on these matters, let's remain calm, and let's assess the record. And just as I said, I think good-naturedly to the Prime Minister some minutes ago, in a slightly different context, that repetition was not a novel phenomenon in the House of Commons, never had been and isn't and won't be. There will be further opportunities for members to raise these matters, including that very particular point, in subsequent days. And this chair will always facilitate the fullest and most unsparing scrutiny of the executive branch, because that is the responsibility of the Speaker, not to be a craven lickspittle of the executive branch, but to facilitate the fullest and most unsparing scrutiny of it. That is my job, and come hell or high water, I will continue to discharge it. Non-negotiable, end of subject.